ZERO1 has a long history of art and technology, running a biennale in San Jose in Silicon Valley for a very long time, since the early 2000s. And we're super honored to be working with them on a more consistent basis as they're living within Gray Area, and we get to meet and help incubate all of this cultural exchange that we just touched on in the last panel. So I'm really excited to hand the mic over to Shamsher Virk, the Executive Director of ZERO1.
So as everyone's getting settled, just a few words of thanks to Gray Area, to Barry, Josette, the whole team here for welcoming us into this experience. We're really proud community partners on the festival, and really excited to be co-locating here with Gray Area now as of late, working in the incubator space ourselves upstairs, and we've been working this week during our Amplify program with international artists, giving them a taste of the Bay Area scene and doing some peer mentorship activities, symposium, and so on. So we're all very excited to be here as part of the festival. All right, well, so Josette kindly introduced ZERO1 a little bit and gave you a sense of where we were coming from. For those of you who don't know us, most of our history has been down in San Jose, centered in San Jose, and recently we've moved our work up to San Francisco, but really our work is primarily happening abroad through the American Arts Incubator program. So myself, I'm Shamsher Virk, the Executive Director, and also the Program Director for this partnership that we have with the U.S. Department of State's Bureau for Educational and Cultural Affairs. So the American Arts Incubator has been developing over about the past 5 years as a new model for public diplomacy. You're probably familiar with a more traditional mode of public diplomacy where we sort of export our artists and tour them around major cities in other countries. This is a model in which we place an artist, an American artist, for a month in one place. They deeply engage with the local community and with issues on the ground, and have what we think is a richer sort of cultural exchange through the experience. So American Arts Incubator, as a creative exchange program, we see it as something that builds communities, it instigates dialogue, it bolsters local economies, and furthers social innovation. And it does that through the application of new media art projects that are community-driven, derived from the participants in the community itself, and applied to a social challenge or environmental challenge that's relevant to that community. Anything from environmental health to gender equality to youth empowerment. And each of these artists will tell you a little more about what they were addressing in their home country. So this past spring, we traveled to Korea, South Korea, to Turkey, to Nepal, to Mexico, to South Africa, and had incubators in each of those places. At the end of those incubators, we selected one international participant to come back to join us for a 10-day-long professional development experience here, which we call Amplify. So these are the artists that you're seeing before you. So we'll take a minute to have them introduce themselves. If you can share your name, the city and country where your incubator took place, the social challenge you addressed, and a brief description of your project that you prototype, please.
Hi, I'm Minju from South Korea. I took participation in AAI program in Gwangju with Lauren McCarthy, and what project was about what social inclusion will happen, especially with home.
Hello everyone, I'm Rüstem Bajracharya. I'm from Nepal, Kathmandu. I took part in AAI Incubator in Nepal, Kathmandu with Jennifer Berry. And our social challenge was women empowerment. We focus on sexual health and menstrual hygiene.
Hello everybody, this is Ahmet Rüstem from Istanbul, Turkey. I'm set designer and digital artist. Our social challenge in Turkey with American Arts Incubator Amplify was gender equality and women empowerment. We created work in terms of these situations.
Hi everyone, I'm Reginald Nkululeko Sedibe. I'm from South Africa. I took part in the AAI Incubator program in Durban, where we created an augmented reality comic book. The focus of the workshop was on the focus of the workshop was on youth empowerment, and we chose to focus on environmental issues.
Hi everybody, I'm Eloy from Hidalgo, Mexico, and I'm a participant of AAI Mexico, and I work with the uses of the new media and the virtual reality to spread the cultural heritage of Mexico.
Welcome, everyone. So I was really resonating at the opening last night, which it sounds like most of you were attending, with comments that Andreas was making around a vision or a utopic vision even for a world beyond nation states and the role that art and culture has to play in helping us imagine that world. And that, really struck a chord with me, having done this work over these past few years and this week working with these artists. The value of cultural exchange in that process of bringing stories to light and making them real and exchanging those stories across borders is a very powerful thing. We witness it firsthand. It has me thinking more broadly about the analogy that can be made, I think, between travel, cultural exchange, and immersive experience or immersive design, so what we might have to learn from those things. This is something many of us are probably familiar with. When we travel, we get a sense of entering a parallel reality. Our senses are saturated. We experience a sense of wonder and magic often. There's a social adventure to the process of traveling and engaging with different cultures. And I think these are things that are common between cultural exchange and immersive experience. So I think there's a really nice tie-in there. So I think to hear a little bit more about the projects that you all have designed, I'd love if you could comment on how immersive design has influenced or played a role in the development of your project. It could be your AAI project or another project from your background.
So in South Africa, we created an augmented reality comic book centered around South Africa's first black female superhero by the name of Nomvula. She represents the spirit of resilience that lives in all of us. And part of it was trying to change how people perceive the hero and the idea that the hero lives within all of us and it's not something outside of us. The way in which emerging media kind of influenced how things worked out, it changed how people interact with the space. That was really cool to see. And there's some wonder when emerging technology and traditional art meet. It becomes this magic almost. And you see it in the people's faces as they interact with your piece and they're just wondering how all of this is working. Yeah, that was very interesting. And so, we started off with a 2D character. We further developed it after the first prototype. We've turned it into a 3D character just because it has the opportunity to go different avenues. Even in terms of like making a 3D print of the figurines or gamifying the narrative in Unity or Unreal. It could take many forms and has different legs, definitely.
Well, in Mexico, we develop a device, interactive device to show 3D printings that we made with the 3D scanning, and we have the experience to make some 360 videos to make an experimental virtual reality environments to show the cultural manifestations in the indigenous context.
Turkey has been dealing with lots of changes in especially last 100 years, and we choose a story written 100 years ago, late Ottoman era, so it was last times of Ottoman era. The story was written like 100 years ago, 1917, and it was the story about a 10-year-old girl, and she was forced to marry in early ages, and we tried to create an empathy feeling, what has changed in 100 years and what's Turkey standing still. And the story was about the girl, like, forced to marry, as I said. She believed if she passes under the rainbow, her wishes come true. So she runs and she passes under the rainbow in the story, and she transforms into a boy. So she feels she will be more free, more equal. So we try to create why a 10-year-old girl wants to transform into a boy. So are the girls still the same in same conditions in east of Turkey, like southeast of Turkey? What's happening? So we try to create interactive installation with gesture recognition software like game engines, and we created a room with sound design and 3D design, like a shadow of the girl and the user between. So same things were happening to the user once he or walking around in the room. So it was a like experimental room.
I come from Nepal, which is a country where females are still treated as a second-class citizen. Traditional norms and values are keeping us as a subordinated group. And in my country, menstruation is taken as taboo, and talking about sexual health is a big no. Nobody talks about that. Nor parents, nor teacher aware students and kids about it. So we come up with the idea of how to make them aware and how to make them comfortable talking about sexual health and menstrual hygiene. And we use Illustrator and Cricut just to create a booklet that was related with sexual education and how to take care of your vagina, how to know more about menstrual hygiene. And at the time, we created the environment, ambience, where you have to enter through a door, and when you enter, then you will realize that's actually vagina where you have entered from. So many people felt like rebirth, and the thing was really interesting because everybody was now open to talk about vagina, sexual health, menstruation, and like it was really good to work like that. And now from Amplify, we are learning technology, how to merge science and art together. So I think it will be a holistic environment, and people will learn a lot. We are planning to create an ambience where teacher or parents, they will be able to teach their kids and students by letting them experience by themselves with technology, art, and all. So.
Yeah, after the AAI workshop, I started a new project which is called Alice in Here Gwangju, which is a city I was born and raised. Actually, Gwangju have been through a lot of historical events, including Gwangju Uprising, 1980s. But the thing is, like, older generation has been experienced about that historical event, but for younger generation, to me, it was so inexperienced, and it's a history basically. So we just learned from that, from the textbooks. So I was asking like, oh, we have an emotionally disconnected to each other, so we gotta talk about like that. So what if I choose to, what if I do, if I were there in the historical event, in the middle of historical event, or what if I choose to act, run, or fighting for them? Like all the Gwangju Rising is actually basically a protest against of government's violence. So to me, it is also history, but it feels like that tragedy happens and keep repeated in a various way. Like imagine, think about the social bullies or discriminations or framing people or judging people. It's basically the violence, mechanism of violence is all the same. So I wanted to set the another world, which is buried online, which is called Wonderland, with diluted with the violence of the Red Queen. So you can actually meet the people who actually suffered the historical event. You can hear, the audience can reach out the online, and you can hear the voice of who actually experienced that history. And once the click or the views reach out on the points, you can actually, that character, like Mad Hunters or Rabbit, just pops up into the city, like historical spots. Yeah, and at the end, at the final performance, you can actually, the audience, the analysts can actually participate into the protest which is called Mad Tea Party. So you can be actually experienced, so we can be connected each other, so immerse.
Thanks, Minju. Thank you, everyone. So there's some really amazing things that have come out in this conversation, drawing on the theme of immersive design and experiential space that were not explicit to the way we set up these exchanges. Obviously, we're doing work with new media across borders. We're doing it to address real-world social and environmental challenges, but we weren't thinking necessarily that immersive design was a focus. So in our conversations, it's what's been really interesting for me, and I think has made a strong impression on the group, is this sense that in each of your projects, there are elements that have been quite powerful, moving, that happen to be immersive. There's an immersive quality to each of them, whether it's the rite of passage of passing through a vagina and finding yourself in a new space, to look into sexual health in a new way, or experiencing a new comic book hero that you've never seen sort of fill space and move off the page and become a part of your world. It's really, really interesting that these qualities, immersive qualities, tend to be the ones that are actually most resonant. So I don't know if any of you would like to speak at all anymore about maybe share a story of someone interacting with your work or an audience experience that was memorable to you and how you saw people interacting with your work.
So one thing, I think I touched on this earlier, was just this idea of how it seemed like magic to a lot of people, how this flat plane could turn into this immersive 3D space all of a sudden. A lot of people were quite intrigued with how it even works, but then after a while they just get over that and they're just in this joyous state of like, wow, what is this? I don't know what else to say.
For me, the mixture of the emergent technologies and the arts are the most powerful tools to talk about those social problems, and I think that we can change our context with these tools.
For me, like immersive design is basically, we can't just anticipate or we can't imagine how audience will react. So that was quite a big challenge for me as a part of who makes immersive theater. So one of my pieces was so funny to watch, like everyone reacts differently, like you never imagine, you just don't have any idea how to react. So this is quite challenging thing, I think.
Since I said that like talking about sexual health, vagina, or anything is not so common, so we were really scared how people gonna react, but we took a risk, and it was really fun to see that people actually were enjoying that. They were more comfortable to be inside that vagina and interacting to the booklet. That was like, we created a never-ending booklet, and they were so enjoying that, to see that. So like it really inspired me to work on more. So to create a fun learning area where people can learn and enjoy at a time without getting bored. So I'm loving the idea of immersive art. It's something really good and something really powerful.
In our project in Turkey, it was set for the user because there was no exit from the happy side as the story, like the dreamy side of the story. There were no exit from the room, so the user had to exit from the dark side. What happens to Ayşe? Like she has to marry as a child bride. So what she faces through with the empathy of the shadows, reacting screen. So it was nice to use creating a waking up project. And how I use immersive art is also I can avoid the blocks of censorship going on in Turkey. We can speak out lots about the government, and we can speak out loud about LGBT rights. So what I believe I can use it very secretly, like a censorship in terms getting rid of censorship with creating some AR areas. Space, actually. Yeah.
Another thing that's, I think, notable about this kind of work that tends to be collaborative and bring people together from different disciplines to create immersive experiences is that it's inherently interdisciplinary. And that also, I think, is a really powerful quality of this kind of collaboration. So we're coming up on time, but I really want this to be an introduction to you all and to encourage you to come and talk to all of us, especially our visiting artists, over the next few days. They have lots more stories to share. Each of them were participants in one team project during their incubator. There were 3 other teams in each incubator as well, and each of those teams took a different take, created a different project that addressed the social challenge. So there's some really interesting stories to suss out through conversation with them. So thank you all for your time, and I look forward to more conversation.